All right. Well, welcome everybody to our third virtual gathering for Ayelet's new book, Fuck the Bucket List, Discover the Wonder of You. So I keep forgetting For the Soul in there. After Fuck the Bucket List, For the Soul, Discover the Wonder of You. And if any of you think that I'm making it up, there it is, right there for you. So we don't have any guests planned for today. So it might just be Ayelet and I having a conversation. And if none of you have seen us have a conversation, we never know where it's going to go. So it could be kind of fun. It could be kind of scary. We might cry. Who knows?
You're sharing all our secrets, Tim.
Well,
But I know you had some technical issues this morning, so if anybody does want to join, just ping Tim and he'll bring you up on screen, and we would love it. I know some people ping me, and we did this last minute in terms of letting people know we were doing it today. So it's pretty organic in its form. So I'm always excited to talk about what's possible in the world. For me, this trilogy is more than books. It's really about an experience, and it has become part of my life mission to connect with other people who really want to see a new world emerge. And I'm very conscious of the tough times we're in right now. A lot of people are really struggling. I just got informed by Linda Polio that Mercury's in retrograde. So if you know what that means, I think a lot more people are getting in touch with the universe and the planetary systems as well. And it might not be you, but it might be you and Mercury together. Who knows? And that's one of the things I realized on my journey, as Tim knows well, is that I started looking around and realizing that there's a lot of theories and a lot of ideas and a lot of philosophies about who created us and who created the sun. And there's a lot of theories about the moon I have found doing research as well, of things I never even heard about. But I did discover a lot of different theories about the moon as well. But then I realized that we are the ones that created the systems around us. We created government, we created taxation, we created war, we created borders. We created urbanization, and we created technology. And I realized that we're just so brilliant that we have a capacity to create. And when we come to the world, the only thing we know for sure is that one day we will die, because when you're in tune and aligned with nature, you know that everything dies. I mean, I can't believe the storms. I was really expecting September to have like more summer days here, and then the fires from Oregon hit us, and all of a sudden it became fall, and the trees are like, I'm like, why can't I see so clearly into my neighbor's yard? And it's like, oh, because the trees lost their leaves. And so when we get more in tune with nature, we really can see that we are part of this equation of nature. And instead of wanting to make the world better or save the world, I think it's time for us to look at the world and look at our place in the world and understand that we are these powerful creators and that no one's coming to save us. We have to step up into our power when we're ready. And it's personal. There's no rule book. I can't tell you how to be. You can't tell me how to be. But together we can help each other at a time where we can question everything.
oh, looks like Ayelet froze on us. Or is that just me? Well, if you're watching, is it just on my end, or did Ayelet freeze? Oh, okay, thank you, Maria. She just left. Linda, thank you. Yes, that was kind of weird. If you don't know my setup, I got like me up here where I got the studio, and then I got the other computer where I'm trying to watch on Facebook, but there's a little bit of a delay. And so I'm watching and Ayelet's still talking, and I'm like, wait, is that the delay or is she still talking and I'm not here? So I'm glad that that you guys are here to join us. I know a few of you mentioned that you can't join us on camera today, and that's great that you're here and chatting. And we'd love to hear you guys in the comments if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts. Hopefully, Ayelet will be back in just a minute. I know she had a new setup, and I see her coming in right now. So we'll let her pick up where she was leaving off. So welcome back. Hello.
Thanks. We had a power outage. We still
Oh, well, that was
do.
kind of interesting because I was just explaining to everybody how I have my studio set up in front of me, but then I got the Facebook feed on my other computer and I couldn't tell if I was frozen, because sometimes like when you're looking at your own camera, you're always moving, but you're frozen and the other person freezes. But it was in fact you freezing. So we had Linda and Maria confirm that for me.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a little softer than you were before.
Okay, I'm on my phone because we have a power outage.
Oh, fun. Good thing your heat is a fireplace.
Yeah, last night I blew a fuse, but I think today the power is out. So I'm not sure how my connection will be, and it's only October, so it's probably telling me what the winter is ahead of us. Anyhow, what just coming back on, but I give me some of your thoughts while I ground myself.
Well, reground yourself. Well, I know that, Esteban was telling, made a comment that I can tell you how to be even if you think I can't. I don't know what that means exactly, but I'm just, really what, I think what you're saying is, this whole version, and I equate it to what I've been conditioned to my entire life. And it started with my parents, and they probably conditioned me because of the way that they were conditioned by their parents. And then I went into school and I was conditioned because the way the schools are run and how you are measured to what your success is by a grade that you get and passing and going on to the next grade. And then you get into the workforce and you're thinking that this is what you have to do. And, I've been so fortunate, and you've been a big part of it, Ayelet, is to really open my mind up to what do I want out of life? Because nowhere along my entire existence did anybody stop and ever ask me that, what I wanted. What do I want to see? What do I want to create? It was always, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or, and that puts in that construct of what society thinks we should be, because that's what they're instilling on us by that question. And I just, it's been so refreshing, but yet it's been such a, I mean, I mentioned in the intro that, we have plenty of conversations where we laugh, cry, we never know where it's going to go. But there's been some very painful moments through this whole journey. And I mean, I'm sure there's going to be plenty more. I just literally right before we came on, I saw Dan Pontefract post that he's done 25 online events, and they did the tech, research before they went on, and everything was fine. But when they went on, the audience couldn't hear his audio. And so they had to reschedule it for today. And it just brought up this whole lesson to me that, this is what life is, right? This is, I mean, everybody's saying that 2020 is teaching us this. We've been presented with this our entire lives. Most of us are just waking up to it in 2020. And so I want to share that for me, it's just so it's such a gift, but it's a gift that comes with some agony, some pain, some hard times, but it also comes with a great sense of freedom and a great sense of um, of just flow, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. But that's why I'm saying all this, is I don't want to discourage people, but I don't want to promise anybody anything that it's not, because to me, it's been a very big struggle to get to where I'm at, and it still continues to be.
Well, thanks for always being so open. This is what I love about co-creation. It's People think it's about like creating something in the world, like a business or a product or a service. And co-creation is really being able to be open heart to heart with someone else. And I find it crazy that in the world today there are people that are teaching us to ask why and to be vulnerable and really how to be human. And somehow along the road, because we're constantly being asked as children, what do you want to do when you grow up? And people still ask me, and I say, I don't know. I don't want to grow up. Whoever came up with this notion of growing up, it's it's overrated because you know that whole story of growing up and then finding eternal happiness, once you've grown up, once you're allowed, to once you're of age to go to the army or to drink alcohol or to do whatever you want. It seems like that story just doesn't work for many of us. And I think from what you said, and I know we've gone to one event together with Seth Godin, and for me, you know, his wisdom around, sometimes safety is risky, is one of the limiting beliefs and the societal conditioning that I address in these books, because I think that's where a lot of us are at. And if anything, 2020 has really shaken us to the core, because some people want to go back to normal. I mean, I've never been normal a day in my life, so I don't know what
Well,
that
I was going to say, what is normal, right? Who defined that?
but it's some level of routine, some level of know what to expect, because we were raised with so much fear of the unknown. I just submitted the second manuscript for the second book about trekking into the unknown, which will be out at the end of January. And I feel like every step of these books that I'm writing, I'm living everything. Like, and when I don't live up to something I'm writing about, it kicks my ass. And so I'm really excited about, bringing this out to the world and having more conversations with people. That really is something that's really important to me. Is it's kind of I had some friends over for dinner recently, and they asked me how things were going with the book, and I said, when I cook a meal, it's really easy to see if somebody likes it or doesn't like it, or if it agrees with them or not, or if they get pleasure out of it. And they were really enjoying my cooking, so that was really nice. I said, but when you spend months and sometimes years, I have friends who've spent years writing books, and you put it out on in the universe. You become very vulnerable. And last week, Linda Polio, when she was talking about her book Trusting the Currents, she mentioned that you know her friends and family weren't reading it, and so she didn't know what it was about. And to me, it's one of my favorite books of all time, and I mention it in my books because, like, we're all so connected about trusting the currents. And so it's such an opportunity for us to really be able to do it. And so I would love for people to leave reviews of how they experienced it, or email me or send me messages and tell me what's going on with them, because that's what I care about. I don't care as much about the old metrics of like being number one, and I don't care about that stuff. What I really care about is how do we get the essence of what is in these books, that words and content and ideas that were entrusted in me to millions of people around the planet who are ready to step out and say, you know what, being safe is actually very risky, and it's time for me to follow my heart and not all this stuff that people are telling me that that's how I'm supposed to be. I mean, it's been really interesting. I have a really hard time asking for help. And so I have gone out and asked for help, and some people have been unbelievably generous, and a lot of it is from people who are on this journey. And there was a generosity here of someone who donated a number of books for anybody in need, and you could reach out to Tim or me, because we have a number of books for somebody who may not be able to afford and wants to experience it. And what we really want to do, it's not even about the books. What we really want to do is create some hope and create some direction for every person to live a healthy life, and decide that it doesn't have to be a struggle, because your mindset really matters. When you wake up in the morning and you have that breath and you take the next breath, you have an opportunity, no matter how tough life is. And the most inspiring people I've ever met were not, the people who got paid a lot of money to stand in front of the room and tell me how to be, or the 5 steps to success. Were when I had a corporate career and I got to travel around the world and I saw people who had nothing. I met a little boy in Johannesburg in a shanty town who grabbed my hand and rushed me through his home, which was heartbreaking for me, but his face was glowing. And he asked me if my whole family lives in one room. And the bedroom turned into the kitchen, turned into everything, from his grandma to his I can't remember how many brothers and sisters. And he thought he lived in a palace, and he had no running water or electricity. And thanks to technology, I got to stay in touch with him. And one day he realized that he didn't live in a palace, because he started to see the world, but he wanted to make things better for his community. And that's where he started to do things. And I think there's something about adversity. There's something about being connected to nature. There's something about asking ourselves questions and really being able to connect to one another, that is so needed. And I just see a world of opportunity, even though, storms come into our lives and our power gets shut down. And, you know, in the first minute when my power went out, I went, what am I going to do? And then I realized I had a device with internet. So I got on. But, if I didn't get on, we would have figured it out.
Well, and I mean, it's just like I knew that my link was broken. I don't know why, from StreamYard to Facebook. And so I couldn't find it anywhere like half an hour before we went live. And all I did was I started the broadcast, I copied the link, I edited the post, and now it's there. And I think that's the whole thing is, when we start looking in life at, instead of freaking out at things, we look at them for what they're trying to teach us. And that's what I've learned is, every time I sense this, in the past, what would have been frustration, I'm now looking at it as what is the opportunity here? What is this situation trying to teach me that I can become a healthier person moving forward? Because I mean, getting stressed out over something is the exact, way that we destroy our health and get depressed and all these mental issues that are going on. A lot of it is self-induced. It's not because of anybody else. It's because of us ourselves. And I just wanted to point out like 2 things that happened in the chat while you were talking, because I think these are such small things that often get overlooked. One is Eric is here and he's watching and commenting, and he was here for a little while and he was watching. And it was only after that he tagged a couple people in the comments for, for the purpose of, I guess, them tuning in and checking it out. So he just didn't share this blindly because he didn't know what it was about. He came and he learned and he heard enough to know, here's other people I think this would resonate with. And that is, it doesn't cost anything. It barely takes any time. And it's such a simple thing to create these ripples that we only see the one ripple, the one person that we shared it with, the two people that we shared it with. But what you don't understand is what is that one person going to do, and who are they going to share it with, and then who are they going to share it with. And if enough of us do that, we create these waves of movement that we often never see. But that's how things start, is by those little actions that we take that don't cost money and they don't take a lot of effort or time. And so, Eric, thank you for doing that. And I also wanted to read something from Maria Garcia, who I know has been starting to read your book. Um, there is a lot of people who think they are not enough because of the conditioning of the world, meaning if you are not someone with a social stature, you are nobody. This is a very limiting belief because everybody is good at something that contributes to something good. And I just love to hear your thoughts on that, and how can we take that? How can we help not only ourselves, but how can we help others in that regard?
I absolutely. I mean, I think the journey is very personal for everybody, and Maria hit it on the head because once you understand the stories that are running in your mind, and that somebody told you that you must be somebody in life. And it's funny because like we trust politicians, billionaires, philanthropists, business leaders, all these celebrities, athletes to tell us all these things about our lives, and none of these people really know us, and most of us don't even know ourselves at a certain point because we've been so conditioned to listen to these stories of success, of how you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to have a fulfilling life. And I tell a story in the book about a young woman who you know went through everything that she to go to the right schools and have the right life, and decided that what she really wanted to do was go to a rural community and focus on regenerative agriculture, because she saw that part of the future of the world is with our food supply and the soil, and that's all she wanted to do in her life. She didn't want to fix the world, she didn't want to make it better, she didn't want to save it. She wanted to go and live her calling and purpose, and it was that simple, and it had nothing to do with anything bigger than that. And so for every person, it's about putting down this manual of success and thinking that, I mean, I can't tell you how many failures I've had, and I'm so happy I've had them because they're huge gifts. I mean, for me, one of the most, when I was in my mid 20s, someone very close to me decided to leave the world because they lost their job. And I didn't want to live in a world where people equated their self-worth with what they did for a living. And I find that it was actually a gift for me, and one of the reasons I'm doing this work in the world is because I want people to know that even though right now in the world we constructed, it's very hard, it's not easy to find each other based on what we care about, based on what we want to create in the world. It's very easy to find things by demographics, by divisions, but it doesn't mean that those divisions are what we're about and what we care about. And so it's up to each of us to find the people. I mean, I get asked all the time, as does Tim, about how we met, and we don't remember. And we each time tell a different story. But my life has been enriched, and I think the first time we met, it took us like a couple of years to meet face to face, because we met in real life. Because this technology, what I love about this technology is that it allows us to be human. If you're scared about being on camera, you're still stuck in that societal conditioning that you're supposed to be perfect, and that there's a certain way to be on camera. But the more that you take steps to really connect with yourself, and that's the first step, to really trust yourself, and to trust that it doesn't really matter how others judge you. We live in such a time right now where it's so easy to judge and shame and blame other people. And why? And I have people that they start wanting to pick a fight or argue, and I let them talk, and then I say, you know what, you're right, and they go, oh, I yell it. I know you don't believe I'm right. I said, if you believe you're right, you're right. I'm not here to argue with you. I said, now that you're right, now what? Now what can we do? Because I don't want to be in war and conflict and disagreements. Of course I want to have healthy conversations. I don't want everybody agreeing with me, but I don't want to give my power away by blaming and shaming or policing anyone else when they don't know what my life is about. I had a call with someone recently, and he said to me, I can't believe that you took my call. And I said, well, you reached out to me and you told me what you were trying to do in the world, and that's what I'm all about. So of course I will talk to you and see if there's any way we can connect, or if there's any way I could help you, or it's like, why not? We're all not that different. And having been around a lot of successful people, I have seen a lot, and I have seen that we're more alike than not. And I've seen the fear and the worry and the doubt in success. And success only lasts a certain time. I've met best-selling authors. They were number one, great. But then next week they weren't. And so what are you going to hang your laurels on? The success or what's in your heart? And how we can connect heart to heart, and how we can connect with ourselves. I mean, that's the thing they don't teach us in school. And I think, Tim, that's what you talked about. And Maria, I think that's what I'd love to have you on for a conversation. I mean, one of my dreams is to have a conversation with people experiencing the book, where I shut up and listen, and people talk about, how you're feeling and what you're finding out about yourself, because this is how we move the needle. I don't want to be, I'm not an expert on you, and you're not an expert on me, but I can help give you some tools to really understand what's healthy and toxic in your life. And I think that many of us have been conditioned around right and wrong, good and bad, appropriate or inappropriate. And what I'm offering the world is, those are all constructs that were created for the lowest common denominator in society. You could be living in an area where there's no zoning, but one person decides to take advantage of it without consulting neighbors, and to do things in a way. And so all of a sudden laws appear because of the lowest common denominator, where the whole community could have had a conversation and there would be no need to have that separation. I mean, that's just one crazy example of it. So, but when you know what's healthy for you, when it comes to the beliefs you put in your mind, when it comes to the people you put in your heart, when it comes to the food and products that you put into your body, when you know what's healthy and toxic for you, then your whole life changes, if you want it to change, because then you're not giving your power to some outside source that tells you what's right and wrong. You start making decisions and you say, this food, when I'm consuming it, I feel sick, I have gas, why am I eating it? Sorry to get so personal, but it's like that. And Maget Waite, the CEO of Skin of Skin, who I love and adore, has taught me that whatever product we put on our skin, we must be able to eat and consume, because it's going through our bodies. These are things that we weren't taught. When I started to see a lot of my friends get breast cancer and understand the toxins that went into deodorants, everything changed, because I started to think, okay, what products, and why do I trust these brands? These brands are successful, but a lot of my friends are dying and or are really sick. And so how do we bring in food and products and services that are healthy for our well-being? And it's up to us. It's insane that we call the food that comes from healthy soil organic. Like, and the other day I went to get my eyes tested, and I tried, the doctor was asking me all these questions, and I said to her, I don't even understand why I call it alternative medicine. Why do I call like pure medicine of like herbs and rest and not being stressed alternative? How did we get to this point in society? It's just a little bit insane.
Just a little.
Just a little.
So, I think a big part of, what I've gone through is this, and I've every time you have been talking, I keep going to it in my mind, and I know you address it in the book too, is, the fear, right? The fear that we have. And I mean, for me, I think the best thing to do was to start realizing the difference between rational and irrational fear. And once we start understanding that, right, it's like all these fears just hold us back from if we give it too much space and too much time, they just hold us back from achieving what we can do. And I think, I want to, I mean, the story I always go back to is I remember hearing or seeing somebody talk about this early on about leaders, right? And there's one person, you're the leader out in the front, and there's half the people that have, arrows that are shooting them in your back because they wish they were where you are, or they're trying to pull you back because they want to be where you are. And then there's the other half of the people that love you and don't want to see you get hurt. And I think your fear sits in that love section, right? They don't want to see you get hurt because it's applying situations in the past where maybe you've gone through something. But the whole thing is you're still there. You're still present. You're a better person for what you went through before. So really that's just irrational fear. It's not hurting me, it's actually helping me as I move through it. And I just, I'm kind of curious, as you looked at it when you wrote about it, how do you view this playing into really discovering the wonder of you with your fear?
Yeah, well, you hit something that we've talked a lot about, which is rational and irrational fear. And just for anyone who's not familiar with these terms, let's just give them a little glimpse of what we mean. So we have like rational fears. I have bears who come into the yard. They're black bears, not grizzlies, and it doesn't matter. But if Mama Bear and the cubs come in, and today I saw this beautiful video of these cubs eating apples, and one of the guys in this place, petting the cub. And in the article, it said, "Don't try this at home," and especially if Mama Bear's around. So rational fear is understanding that if you see a cubs with a Mama Bear, do not approach them. It's rational that you might get hurt. Or let's say there's oncoming traffic, you're not going to walk into it. And so being rational about what's possible and looking at the different circumstances is important. But irrational fear is what we talked about before, and what Maria brought up as well is the limiting beliefs, is the thinking that I'm not good enough, the thinking that I have to be like everyone else, or I have to be somebody. The irrational fear is being scared that somebody's going to find me out, that I'm a fraud, that I really don't know what I'm talking about, or that they'll find out that I don't know something, because we've been raised to all be little Einsteins, and even Einstein was human with flaws, as we found out recently. So I mean, we need to understand where our fears come from. And I think one of the biggest viruses we have today in our society, especially when we're separated from nature and we think nature is somewhere to detox, and that we're not part of this beautiful rhythm of nature, is that understand the difference between our rational and irrational fear and where it comes from. I think one of the things that's really important, I'm taking a step back from your question a little bit, Tim, is we don't spend enough time in the root cause. And so I'm at a point in my life when I am thanking my ancestors for creating the systems that we have. But I'm saying that the foundation of our house right now is rotten and rotting, and I'm not going to keep building on top of it. And so when you have like irrational fear, you're very committed to continuing to build, to continuing to go, even though the foundation is broken. If only I did this one thing, things will be better, is a limiting belief. Because if you don't look at the root cause of what's causing you to struggle, what's causing you the pain, and a lot of it is that someone told you, there's some people who believe that when they retire they need to have $10 million, and this is a fact, this is not a theory. And some people would like shake their head going, what, are you crazy? And they live their lives in fear that if they don't have the $10 million to retire, they're not, and they're not living right now. That's the thing to me also about bucket lists, is like our ability to be present right now in our lives, and our ability to look at our fears. And it doesn't matter if you have a lot of wealth or no wealth, and again, a lot of resources or no resources, and it could be money, it could be friends, it could be whatever it is. But until you look at the root cause of what causing you that fear and where it's come from. Is it a voice in your head from a grandparent, a parent, a teacher, someone who told you all this stuff at some point in your life, or that you have to be a certain way? But when you deal with your fears, it's not easy. But you can start anywhere, and there's no manual of where to start with it. And sometimes the people closest to you will not support you. They'll think you're crazy, especially when you go on this journey of like trying to see things in a different way about the world. I mean, for me, I started to see, because I was involved and I had a front row seat, that we were throwing billions of lives and billions of dollars, possibly trillions, and resources and fundraisers and all these causes. And yet 1 in 5 children in America go to bed early every night. And then also, women don't have safe places to give birth around the world. And so what are we doing? And for me, like, this journey is about questioning everything and saying, do I want to participate in this? Or do I want to look at different ways where I can help and what I'm passionate about? Because I'm not here to save or fix or do anything. I'm here just to do my little small part. And it's hard. I mean, I've been using the term pioneer, and I know some people don't like that term because they think of pioneers taking over territories, but I don't use it in that way. I mean, because I don't want to use innovators, because innovators has been overused. And so I'd love to come up with some people and say, what's the word for us? And when I use creators, people don't understand. And so I'm trying to use familiar language that people don't fear, because again, a word can cause rational or irrational fear with you, of setting expectations, of how you perceive things, because we've been conditioned to always be in a box. And I don't represent all women. I don't represent all people in my boxes. But I'm just represent yourself. Like, why do I have to represent others? Why do I have to keep fighting? There's a whole expedition in the second book about what are we fighting for? And that's the fear. That's the fear. In certain countries, when a baby is born, people say, I'm sorry, you have another soldier. I mean, is this the world we want to live in? And Tim and I had this conversation, and he said at one point, I don't know, about 7 years ago, he says, when we talked about what you do for a living, when a baby is born, I'll quote you, Tim. Do you want to say what you said?
Well, when a baby's born, we don't call it a worker, we call it a human, a baby, a new life.
He said, when a baby is born, Is there?
Am I losing you?
But how does that shift so quickly? You know, so fear. I know fear is something that you have been studying quite a bit and have strong opinions about. So, are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You are going out for a little bit there, but you're here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, we can. You're good.
Okay. My power is back, so I'm wondering if I should just go back on my computer.
Oh, that
The
might
power
be
came
that
back.
might be good.
Why don't you
And
talk
I
for a
can
couple
share my
minutes and I'll just get back on my
yeah.
computer.
No, I'll just share
Oh, you
my
can hear me?
yeah.
So this
No,
is
but
the
I
story
mean,
of
I
my
think when
life. You know,
yeah.
some people would say, "How did your chat go today?" And I would say, "Wonderful. It went like the storms in life." Sometimes, you know, we. I'm, I'm going to
Okay,
go out.
get on your computer. So no, when Ayelet was mentioning about fear, and what I've learned about fear is that most of us have always been taught that we need to overcome it, we need to conquer it, we need to bury it, whatever it is. And what I've learned is fear never leaves us, and we want fear with us, because when we have fear with us, it protects us in those rational times where we need it. And so for me, it's not about how we conquer it, how we overcome it, or how we bury it. It's how we deal with it, how we have a healthier relationship with it. Because as I was mentioning before, I think what I've learned and seen from so many people is the longer we let fear sit with us, the more of a grip it holds us in and doesn't allow us to start creating what we want to create. And so for me, that's like the really the essence of using fear to your advantage is not letting a lot of time, take action right away after you understand what your fear is trying to tell you and you acknowledge that. The second thing is to always have a sense of community of support around you. And I love that Eric posted the one of my favorite TED talks that about the first follower, and how this crazy person dancing on a hill all alone, and then everybody's looking at him like he's absolutely nuts. But then the first person that comes up and starts dancing with them is really the second leader, even though he's the first follower. Because once there's two, all of a sudden everybody else starts feeling more comfortable that they can get up there and do it too, and they won't be looked at as crazy because now there's two people doing it. And so I think for, when you have that sense of community, it doesn't take a huge amount of people. It just takes maybe sometimes that one or two people that can help you understand that you're not crazy, that this is something that you should be co-creating and bringing to the world. And those two things, I think, are some of the biggest things that we can do as far as really moving forward with fear and not having fear hold us back.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the openness. I mean, it's funny because I had moments of some fear when I was getting the book out. I was like, do I really want to put this out in the world? And I had these long conversations with myself about what does success look for me, and for me, it's I would love for people to be able to experience the book in community and have conversations with other people about what's going on with them. But also, have conversations with yourself. I know it might sound a little crazy for people, but we forgot how to have conversations. We forgot about how to have dialogue. We forgot how to feel the sadness that we feel. I mean, every single person on this planet has gone through some trauma or some wound. And we kind of put it under the table, and while things are going on in the external world, there are things going on. A parent could be experiencing dementia. You could have lost a parent. You could have lost a spouse recently to a disease, and it's really hard. And then you're supposed to come and just be your cheerful self, or and having that dialogue with yourself, not just during the happy times, but during those times where you get right to the core of your fears, and being able to be gentle and kind and compassionate to yourself is so important. It's something that we don't learn or teach, or it gets taught out of us as kids, because we're constantly being told what the truth is and what the truth isn't, when we don't know our own selves and our own truth. And so that fear is something that, when we could come face to face and eye to eye with it and really understand the root cause of it, and experiment with different things. If you're scared of being on camera because you're gonna make a fool of yourself and other people are gonna see you, where does that stem from? Because if you had to talk to someone you love in your life right now on camera, and they really needed you, you wouldn't care how you looked. You wouldn't care, if you looked like a fool, you'd be there. So how do we show up for ourselves? That's the thing that we don't learn. There's no manual for, and that nobody could tell you. You could read a ton of different theories about it, but until you fully have a mindset of an adventurer, I mean, to me, something that you said earlier, Tim, and because of all these power shortages and stuff that I wanted to bring up, is one of the things that really helped me, and I'm not sure if it could help you, but I'm just sharing something that helped me, was I was really conditioned to see problems and to say, okay, here's a problem in my life or a problem in my work, and I must solve it. And I found that there are certain people in my life that as soon as I would say XYZ is happening to me, they gave me like all the solutions I could have, but they didn't really stop and listen to what was going on. They were so focused on the solution. And I think this is a mindset of the last century that we're still dragging along with us. But this is a time, and I love Care Anderson's work around opportunity makers, and when she shared her story in my first book, I really got to think about it, and I really started to think about what makes like a conscious leader. And I really realized that when you see a problem, instead of like just going the fear, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? You can go through that, because you can go through whatever's natural. But for me, I started to go, okay, but what's the opportunity here? How can I really look at the root cause and not just see the problem, but see the opportunity of what's possible? Because I could live in this mindset of scarcity that we've been conditioned to, that, we're not enough, there's not enough, we've got to struggle, we got to fight, we got to be successful, and I've got to solve this problem. Or I could take a breath and stop and say, okay, what's the opportunity? What's the worst thing that could happen? Is how we've been trained. But what if you asked yourself, what's the best thing that could happen? What if you let go of that fear and really looked at the possibilities of what we can do? And that, to me, is the most exciting part. And I think that when millions and millions of us start connecting, even not like just in what we do in our individual lives. It doesn't mean that we're all on the same call or we're all in the same room or the same, but we're all here on the planet. And when millions and millions of us take our power back in our lives and live a meaningful life and understand what's healthy for us and create a healthy life, it could be that you start growing a garden. It could be that you're there for a child. It could be that you're doing something for yourself. But the more of us that step back into our power and don't accept things as they are, the more that we're going to shift. And it doesn't come from, not everybody is a Gandhi, which I learned is actually a Persian dish recently too. But but we don't, I don't want to live in this hero society that one day you're a hero and one day you're not. How can you live a fulfilling life for yourself?
Oh, maybe the power went back out again on Ayelet. But I was gonna comment that, the one thing that I've done personally that's really helped me is I do have a conversation with my fear. It does show up as a voice in my head. I used to jokingly say that, if I told people I heard voices, they'd probably put me in a straitjacket, right? And and have me, committed. But what really now I talk about is, you know, how do we, how do we do this in a way that allows us to have this conversation with our fear, and really have it be something that's open, and and us not telling fear that it's wrong, us not putting fear down, just like we wouldn't put down another person. We don't want to put down our fear. And so for me, it was actually taking and free flowing a conversation with myself and my fear, and coming to an understanding that I always left the door open where fear would be there for me to have another conversation with. But generally, what my fear was trying to tell me is it was just protecting there and just there because of situations in the past. Because that's all anybody knows is what's happened in the past. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. And when I asked fear to trust me, to make my own decisions, to take what it was telling me and be able to achieve things. And I yell it right before you froze. I was just thinking of something that I had learned before, or I don't know where it came from exactly. I know who I got it from, which was Jenny Weigel. But it was, this whole thing when you're faced with a situation where you're not sure, your fear starts kicking in, ask yourself 3 questions. What's the best thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? And what's going to happen if I do nothing? And I think usually when I can go in very dark places for the worst thing that can happen. So, but the reality of it getting to that point is pretty slim. So the more real worst thing that can happen is I look like a fool, right? Or I lose a couple dollars or whatever it is. It's not that I end up dying, and even beyond that, I don't want to get too morbid here, but it really is, that's the worst thing that can happen. What happens if you do nothing is you keep that fear with you, you keep that regret with you, you keep that what if with you, and it eats away at you and it causes you to be unhealthy. And I'm talking about me. I'm not saying this for everybody. This is what I do. And usually the best thing that can happen is it can be something that you don't know, that you're envisioning the best thing, but really all you're looking at is you want to change where you're at now, that moment in time, to do something different. And usually it's going to be better. It's not going to be worse. And the worst thing you can do is do nothing, because that just keeps you in the same spot that you've always been at.
I love that. And yes, we've had our next power failure. And it was funny. I was trying to charge my phone, forgetting there's a power outage. So if I disappear, then all my devices have failed me today. But I'm sure they will return. But I love what you just shared, Tim, because I think knowing that we're not alone, and knowing that nobody, if 2020 has shown us anything at all, is that no one knows much of anything, and that it is time to trek into the unknown. It's time to take some risks. And again, what you're able to do. I mean, we're all different. Some people can take certain risks. It doesn't mean that they've got it right. They know, when you know what's healthy for you, and I'm sure that was part of, some of the steps that you took, is understanding that this is toxic for me. Why am I allowing? I just remember from some of our conversations. I mean, you took some really bold moves that people thought you were crazy for making, but you knew that it wasn't healthy and toxic for you, and you really brought the things. I mean, I so admire what you've done, because you're a living proof of a healthy human being who's just making their way in the world and trying different things, and there's so much for us to learn about ourselves and learn from each other. And that's the beauty of conversations. I know my life is fuller because you're in it, and I want other people to be able to experience this as well, by getting rid of things that no longer serve you. I mean, that, people often ask me about the title of the book, about the bucket list. And it's not I don't care if you have a bucket list or not. I just, every year, when the year changes, you're supposed to do your goals. Well, who knows what your goals are, and why are you supposed to do them every year? Like, are the things on your list yours, or are they something dictated from society? The more that we can get in tune with what we actually want to accomplish, and that's personal. It doesn't mean that you have to travel. It doesn't mean that you have to do certain things. It could mean that you just want to sit in a relaxing chair and look at the ocean, or walk, through the mountains, or whatever lifts your heart up. And then once you find that kindness and compassion, and that vulnerability within yourself, then, and trust yourself, then we could talk about what your expectations are. And you know if you're a parent, when your child sees you be kind to yourself, that's where they learn from, not from like a book that tells them how to do it. We learn by experiencing life, and that's what we're here. I mean, I want to get to a point where we don't talk as much about life and actually live. And we're out there creating what we need most. Imagine you woke up every morning and you were in tune with what you're here to do on the planet, whether it's be an amazing parent, or just have a great time doing something that you love. I mean, there's no rule book to this. And so the ability to question everything and discover the wonder of you, to me, is that's why it's also the first book, is that once we discover our own wonder, and we can trek into the unknown, we can trust our hearts, and so much is possible. It's such an exciting time despite everything that's going on, and we control the volume on the noise. You could bring all this noise into your world. You could choose to war and conflict with people around you, in disagreement and in hate, but this isn't happening to you. We're part of it. And when we step into our power and say, what am I creating in my world? And how do I want to show up? It doesn't happen. You don't click your heels and it happens overnight. I mean, I am just astounded. And when I watch entertainment, and I did my master's degree on the impact of television on society and politics, and so much of what I wrote about back then is happening now. And I look at it and I go, I don't want to keep watching shows about psychopaths and sociopaths and murderers and despair and criminals. Who's creating the next generation entertainment that lifts our spirit? And how do we start consciously choosing not to watch these shows that bring fear into our lives? I mean, I could just turn on the news. I don't have to look at a mini series. If I just turn on the news, I will see my share of psychopaths and sociopaths and murderers and horrible things. But I can tell you, and maybe we have another conversation and we bring some people on board. If you're one of them, I'd love to have a conversation with you about what is amazing. What are you creating in the world, and how can we focus more on that and turn the volume down on what is creating fear and a sense of survival for us. So I'm worried my battery might die, Tim. So
Well, we're just about to the end anyway. But I think for me, it really has been, you keep talking about creating, and for me, it's, I consider myself an artist. not in the traditional sense, but because artists create something from nothing. They take something and turn it into something that didn't exist before. And when you're a worker, you produce, right?
Yeah.
When you're a student, you achieve. When you're, anything, and just as humans, we naturally consume so much. But what if we stopped consuming as much and having those influences come in from externally and started looking at what we could create? And it doesn't have to be that you need to carve a statue. It doesn't need to be that you draw a painting. It doesn't need to be that you need to write a song or play an instrument. But what art can you put out in the world?
I love that. I absolutely love that, because that's where the passion comes out, and maybe you create a relationship or you create a conversation. And I recently saw a new friend's art, and my heart just opened up as I looked at her painting and the creations that she's putting out in the world. And there's so many people through music and through art, but then being a creator in your life, of creating those moments for yourself and others, that's the beauty of it. And you put it so beautifully. And despite all the technical failures here, I just love the conversation and look forward to more, and hope people will be dealing with their fear of being on screen and on camera, and we could have some really cool conversations about what we're creating in the world, and make it less about the book, and more about the outcome of the impact that we could have in our lives. And because I really see millions and millions of us just becoming very conscious and aware, and living healthy lives, and finding not just the sadness and the trauma, but the joy and the happiness, and finding the inspiration from within, because that's where it's at. Each one of us holds it deep inside of us. Each one of us is an artist. And what Tim just said is just amazing. So look, I'm grateful if you're watching this, please reach out. Let's have conversations. Let's create what's possible, because we're trekking into the unknown, and there are no rules, there are no guidebooks, and anything and everything is possible. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and Eric and Maria. Celine was on earlier. I don't know if she's still watching from France, and we had a couple other people. Linda was here, so thank all of you for joining us today, and look for something next week where we'll jump on and do exactly what Ayelet said. Is we will have more people on and make it more about what they're creating in the world and what they see and what vision and what art they're putting out there. So let's do it. And I can't thank you enough, Ayelet, and everybody for creating their little ripples in the world, because I think we need more of that. And the more of us that do that individually, the more others can be inspired, just like that crazy person dancing up on the hill. So, so thank you.